What is up, guys and girls? Hurricane Liz here, and in this video we once again hit part 2 of 4 in a 4-part video on the truth behind dropshipping. Is it really worth it to commit all those credit cards as well as Amazon accounts and possibly get those ripped out from underneath our feet? Well, in this video again, Josh joins me in talking about the good, the bad, and the ugly. And I'm not talking about bumping uglies here. I'm talking about the ugly part of the giant that is called Amazon. So let's go and deep dive into what happened to Josh and more about his story in this second part. So let's do this. All right, so we're back again with part 2 with Josh. And in this one, we're going to get more into the dirty details. Like I said before, we're going to find out how much he's made at dropshipping, how much he hopes to make at dropshipping. We're going to find out all about his hopes, his dreams, and a little something called COVID. So Josh, first and foremost, let me ask you this much, because I can clearly remember how I felt when I first saw what was actually happening in the world and I saw what was going on with COVID. And pretty much all these things started to run into my mind as to what was actually really going to go on. And then it hit me, like, what is going to happen on Amazon? What is going to happen with my Amazon business? Obviously, it was a lot of fear, panic, and worry that the worst was going to happen because, hey, I'm human. And well, that's just kind of how I sometimes tend to do things. So I was like freaking the hell out, wondering like, holy shit, what's going to happen to my Amazon sales? What's going to happen to my Amazon business? Nobody's going to want to buy everything because we're going to all get coronavirus. How did you feel about COVID when you first heard about COVID, and how did you feel that it was going to affect your Amazon business?
So when I first started learning about COVID, I was pretty unsure of what to think, just because the data was so unclear on everything, and I didn't know who to trust, who to listen to. Actually, I didn't trust anybody, period, but I couldn't even trust the data. So I was very confused. So what I was looking at most was how people were responding to it, and in particular consumers. How are consumers responding to the coronavirus epidemic? And I saw a lot of people freaking out. And because a lot of people freaking out, I thought, well, man, perhaps we're going to go into a recession. People are going to hold on to their money. They're not going to spend. And so I made the assumption that I was probably going to lose some sales on Amazon. However, that didn't seem to be the immediate case.
Right, absolutely. And I could say for myself, like, I did countless amounts of YouTube videos on my sales during COVID. And one of the things that I experienced, and you saw this too, because obviously we talked about this and we were in communication about what was going on with our drop shipping stores. But during COVID, I was hitting numbers like in the $30,000 per day range, which is quite exciting, especially for people that have just seen me. And I was hitting those numbers, but still telling people out there that watch my videos, like, do not drop ship, guys and girls, unless you're ready for certain things to happen. And I was really clearly against it for noobs. And I was not advising anybody do it. In fact, I had a warning on just about every video that there was that this was not advisable. I never recommended it to anybody. And a lot of people were probably alarmed about that. But here's the most alarming things. The actual stores, majority of the stores that I had were actually done for you services where I paid somebody else to actually run them for me. And again, the promises were clearly 10% margin and or higher. Now, what is your thoughts on that? And the reality was nothing like that. So do you want to tell people, after actually helping me do my accounting, because it can be quite confusing, what we came up with numbers and how alarming it was, the real numbers versus what we saw in revenue?
Okay, so two things. One, I want to go back to what you were saying about kind of like the actual realization of COVID. Like, while there was this fear that came with it, the actual response from consumers was a lot more like a hurricane almost, where actually consumers were buying in bulk and saving and getting ready, right? So I thought that was surprising. Like, my numbers went up in general, you know. And to your point, I love that you put a I don't recommend this thing at every video for dropshipping, because in this particular case, it was a high risk business model, but it was high risk, high reward at the time because of the sales revenue, right? You did 30K in one day at one point. Now, as for my perspective about the done for you services again, you know, like I said in the previous video, I mentioned how, you know, one of the things is when you're doing a done for you service, you don't have control over your own business really, unless you insist and have a contract that insists that you're very involved, right? If you can actually be involved in that done for you service, and which is rarely going to happen, by the way, because they don't want to reveal their systems to you. But if you can get past that bullshit, then you can actually get involved. Now, if it's just a complete hands off done for you, I'm going to make you 20, 30% margins, guaranteed 30K a month, all these promises. And I still see it being sold today. I just think there's a huge lack of integrity with a lot of salespeople right now, because again, it's such a sexy business model if you don't know what you're doing, right? People don't understand the potential risk of losing your Amazon account that comes with this business model. If you sell the wrong things, you can lose your account, especially if you're brand new. And even if you're old, 2014 accounts, if you do enough things wrong in the Amazon dropshipping world, which there are a lot of things you can do wrong, you get lost too. And people making unsubstantiated claims, taking from regular people. I've heard of people take to this, like still today, they are doing sales calls from webinar funnels, and they're saying like to their clients, they're calling them up and they're like, I mean, it's only $25,000 up front, and then I take 35% of profit, but I just do everything for you, and you can expect 200K, up to 100K per month within the first 12 months, right, at a 10+% margin. And I especially for noobs, I just don't think that's going to happen. I think people are mismanaging accounts unless they have an amazing process. And I would love for anybody out there who's actually selling that service to come to me and show me them actually doing good numbers with new accounts, and I'll fucking buy in. I'd do it, but I haven't seen it myself. I think people are getting accounts suspended left and right so they can get that 25K upfront fee and then say to the person, hey, I'm sorry, things happen with Amazon, and they keep that 25K. It's their way of getting a quick $25,000. And I think it's just a lack of integrity, and I think it's unethical. That's not to say that for some old stores it couldn't still work, but even in the case of some of the old stores we reviewed, like some of the stores we reviewed with you, we saw the margins were lower than expected. Now, why was that? Well, because we were relying on the accounting of the person who was doing the done-for-you service, right? All we knew was the numbers they gave us. Now, when we went in depth, we coded bots to scrape your data off of the supplier sites, and then used reports from Amazon and cross-referenced everything and found a lot. I mean, at least 2% of the transactions had some kind of error in them, and that makes a huge deal when you have one line item in your accounting that says you made $300, but you actually lost 20. It's a big difference when that happens over and over and over again. And so what I would say is when it comes to the done-for-you service, and again, I would love somebody to prove me wrong. Please comment on this video if you're a provider and you can get a new account making 200K in 12 months without getting it suspended. I'd love to hear from you. But I feel like at worst, people are doing these sales calls, taking 25K, getting people to spend $10,000 on their Amazon account, and then having them lose that account and then have $10,000 frozen in Amazon. So this person that thought they were going to have a great business lost 35K, the supplier keeps 25K, and at the best case scenario, we have situations like yours where you're promised a higher margin and it comes out to be half that.
Yeah, absolutely. So for the people that didn't get that, 5% is more or less what we estimate. It could have been as low as 4% that my margins were actually. So Josh, I need a calculator here, but if we look back at one of those record-breaking days of, let's just say $30,000, and we take the 4%, that means I only made $1,200 in profit. Now, here's the crazy thing. I know a lot of people are like, Liz, what are you bitching about that? What are you whining about that for? We hear you whining about everything, and now you're going to whine about this. Like, wah, right? But here comes the crazy reality. The reality is, to hit the $30,000 in revenue, I had to rack up my Amex Platinum card to possibly, what would that be with math, Josh? Just give me a number, because I'm too dumb to figure that part out.
I mean, yeah. What do you mean? So if let's say you're getting paid out every 2 weeks, right? So if you had to do, let's say you did 30,000 per day for 2 weeks, you had to rack that bitch up to $420,000 before you got to pay out from Amazon.
Yeah, now let's talk about one of the dangers, which is like completely kind of, I'm going a little bit off topic here, Josh. So let's talk about one of the dangers. one thing that you haven't mentioned to people is something like really disturbing that can happen to you, because it's happened to me on 2 stores. In fact, I still have a total combined $7,000 trapped on Amazon that they will not release. How much at one point did you have trapped on Amazon that they would not pay you back? And how long did it take them to actually pay you back that money?
Yeah, so as you mentioned, I have my own do-it-yourself store that I work with on a partner with. We do everything ourselves, have our own team, and then I did the done for you. The done for you service is where this problem happened. And in my done for you service, at one point, and it was during the COVID epidemic where sales were high, like they were flying through the roof, but new policies came out and were being strictly enforced, like price gouging. Shit came out of nowhere. We didn't expect it. The softwares we were using couldn't handle strange situations like that. They were just trying to maximize our profits. I had, I think, $62,000 locked in there for over a month. I mean, when you've got that tab on your credit card and Amazon's holding on to your funds and you're sending plan of action after plan of action after plan of action, getting no good responses, yeah, we had to pay several $1,000s to get someone to help us write a plan of action and finally get that money back. But that was a disturbing thing, because that was the end of the business if we couldn't get the money back.
Right, and I just wanted to point one other thing out. This was on an Amex Platinum card, which means that has to be paid within 30 days. So it's not a card where you could leave it charged on there and then pay the interest and then hope to God Amazon sends it back to you in a couple months. This is a card where you are responsible to pay it back within 30 days. So that was one of the really crappy parts about that. Now, I want to give you 2 hypothetical situations, Josh, because I know we got a lot of people still probably thinking like, oh, this sounds so exciting, $30,000. But I want to give you 2 hypothetical situations. Let's pretend we have someone that wants to start out with Amazon dropshipping, because like I told you, I still see it in the comments, despite the fact that I told people, do not try this if you're brand new, or try it with caution. But let's take a brand new person with no dropshipping experience whatsoever, no Amazon experience, and no Amazon account. Would you recommend that they started this? And if so, how would they go about it?
Okay, so I mean, I would say no, but if some people are going to hear me say no and still do it, and what I would tell them is, just go in as slow as you can and don't start off with the done for you service. I would say be as cautious as possible. Learn everything you can about all of the risks involved. The people that do these done for you services, they don't lay out the correct expectations and the risks associated with this business model. The big risk is that you can lose your account and have your funds frozen. That sucks. So look at every scenario, all the different things that can go wrong, like getting a IP infringement or a counterfeit infringement or a price gouging violation or any other kind of violation, because your seller account health matters a lot here. So you need to get deeply involved, as boring as it sounds, in the literature of Amazon and figure out what can go wrong before you dive in. So I would say, if you're going to do it, baby step, and even better yet, baby step with retail arbitrage first. Maybe even send in an FBA product, a BS one, just to give the account a little bit of a boost of confidence. Maybe Amazon will give you a little more leniency in that account. I just want to say you need to be as cautious as possible. But no, it wouldn't be my number one recommended business model for a completely beginner.
Today we're having all sorts of interruptions. My cat just felt the need to shove the door wide open. So if you start to hear some meowing, she just wants me off this actual video call. So second hypothetical situation is, how would you start an Amazon business of drop shipping if you were a somewhat experienced person with Amazon and you had an existing account? Do you recommend it, first of all? And if so, how would you go about it?
If you've got a really good FBA business going on there, I wouldn't recommend it. I think it's adding too much risk to your account. If you're getting out of FBA and you've got an aged account, then yeah, I think it's a good opportunity to jump in. But just before, again, get involved in the literature of Amazon, learn what can go wrong, talk to people who have done this business model, talk to them about the things that can go wrong, all the things, there's all kinds of brands you can't list, and just, start slowly and tread lightly and really, like, just don't dive in and list 7,000 products. your first, thing. And something else to consider is that if you're doing it yourself, then you also need to, take into consideration you're probably going to have to use some software. So there's going to be operating costs when it comes to software. And if you want to scale it, which if you're an experienced seller, then you probably are going to want to scale it. You're going to have to build a team. You're going to have VAs working on this, probably a project manager of sorts that are familiar with the softwares you're using, and you want to have a very detailed accounting record and very good standard operating procedures telling them what they should and should not do. How to list, what not to list, what kind of thing, like make sure your employees understand the policies around price gouging, around which brands not to list. So I would say have very intricate procedures, have an ongoing record of transactions, who's doing what, keep track of who's getting the most profit, and I would also say explore multiple retailers as well. So a lot of people just use Walmart. From my experience, if you're going to do this and you're experienced already, I would say go into some of the other retailers as well. Maybe look at things like Wayfair, Target, places like that. But again, read the literature, read the forums, figure out what can go wrong, and build every procedure you can beforehand. Just build a system before you jump in.
Right, absolutely. That's some terrific advice, Josh. And one last question that I have for you. I think you pretty much summed it up. I think you do believe people can still succeed in dropshipping in 2020, but it is going to be a climb. It is going to take some work. You're not just going to be able to pay somebody 25 grand and have them create you a store. Next thing you know, you're out at the clubs just making it rain on wherever and whoever you want. That's not going to be the case. And that's what I feel that you've said thus far. Now, let me ask you this question. Sure.
One point I want to make, though, is that even if you do it yourself, I would say at best, don't expect anything above a 10 to 15% profit margin, So just also weigh the options of where else you could put your money. Maybe you can get a higher return. That's up for you to decide. Great
points. Okay, so let's talk about, now that we know about returns and margins and things of that nature, I talked about, and I showed everybody what I made in a single day and what's the most that I've made. And that was all in part thanks to COVID. Realistically, what I was doing the rest of the days that was not COVID was $1,000, $2,000, sometimes $3,000 a day. However, you have found now post-COVID, I obviously shut down one of my stores on my own, and Amazon shut the other one down. And I've still got 1,000 stuck in there, so I'm trying to get it back. But with your stores, what is the actual most you've ever made drop shipping in a single day? Just so people kind of understand what's going on. And what is the estimated profit margin for that?
Okay, so just like you, in the midst of the COVID epidemic, my highest day was $14,510.30 in revenue. So right around, it's getting close to 15K, about half as good as you, right? And that was with a relatively fresh store that was open in 2019, I want to say, so pretty good. But it wasn't very long after that was the particular account that got shut down and had 60K stuck in it. So that account has been dormant ever since. Me and my partner are still thinking about how to move forward with that. We just want to be cautious. So yeah, we had 15K a day. Now with our do-it-yourself one, our biggest day was only $2,155.93. So just a little bit over 2K. But that one has been pretty consistent all the way around. We're averaging about $1,000 per day, and it's still going right now about $1,000 per day. I would say that one is currently operating. The one that's being done in-house, that one's operating at honestly, probably about a 5% margin, just because we haven't optimized the business yet. We're still just taking into account the software, the employees we're paying. We're still working on building it to a place where it can have a higher margin. But it's gonna require us to scale to higher revenue numbers. The other one, I can also say about 5% because that was a done-for-you service. So, I mean, out of that 15K, I can assume only 5% of that was actual profit. What's that? $600? Yeah. So there you go. Weigh your options.
Right. And as you've seen, people can still make money with this. It's still something that will continue in 2020 and beyond. However, the barrier for entry and the actual amount of knowledge that you need, as well as the guts to do it, are getting higher and higher. So there's a higher stakes at this actual game. So while Josh doesn't entirely recommend everybody go out there and do this, some people still might, and some people might just have some success, but it's a lot harder if you're brand spanking new and you don't have a lot of assets and you come to the plate with nothing. And at the end of the day, if you're going to do it, you're going to do it. I wish you the best of luck, and I hope that you guys are able to pull it off if you do decide to do it. Now, I will say this much, we do have a part 3 because there are some alternatives to this drop shipping model that we're going to touch on next time around. And I'm not even going to give you guys a sneak peek. I just want you to watch it. What is the alternative to drop shipping? But I will say this much. On the last video, a couple people asked, like, Josh and I are very qualified to talk about this just because we have so much experience making money at it, losing money at it, and within the Amazon atmosphere in general. We kind of been around the block. Like I said, we're a couple of streetwalkers pretty much. Now I just included myself in there. And somebody in the last video actually asked me this, Josh. Maybe I'm mixing this up, but what is the Gen Z word for a streetwalker? Like, a lot of people were like, Liz, what the hell is a streetwalker? Question mark, question mark.
The Gen Z word for a streetwalker? Listen, I don't know what a streetwalker is.
Oh, shit. There we go. There we have it. Streetwalker.
Like, are we talking like a prostitute? Like,
Josh, I'm not talking. What you're calling us prostitutes now? There's no way that we're prostitutes.
Oh no, we're like we're streetwalkers. Like, we've been around the block. So we're like shit. I don't know.
I can't believe you're calling us prostitutes. I was talking about the dudes pushing the drugs at the corners of the street because we just know everything going on, everything. Tell you guys, those Gen Z kids, you guys are making me laugh.
Yeah, God, you really threw me with like I know a lot about Amazon and money and business, but I don't know shit about drugs and streetwalkers, so I don't know what to tell you.
Video somehow exploded in from going to Amazon dropshipping to streetwalkers. So obviously, I'm not telling you guys to get out there and be pimps. No, I did no way, shape, or form said that. But just get out there and start doing something. I'll see you all on the next video. And as usual, questions or comments, Josh and I will personally answer them. I'll see you guys on the next video.